Hello, Booktube. Well, it's Tuesday, bright, sunny, cold Tuesday here in Boston, and that means Tag Tuesday, where we all do tags and tag each other. At least that's the way it's supposed to work. And there's a tag that a million people have done. It's the evolution of a reader tag that was created by Spread Book Joy. And I'll leave a link to that original tag. And I saw a whole bunch of people do it, and I would watch the tag. It's just the kind of interesting personal tag that I love. And then my heart would start to flutter at the end of their video, hoping that maybe I would be tagged. No, no, no. I saw it on Heather Gregg's channel, and I'll leave a link to her video. And I asked her, "Well, you didn't tag me. Uh, is that because of my rock hard 8-pack abs?" And she said, "No." I said, "Is it because of my smoldering come hither eyes?" And she said, "No." I said, "Is it because of my long, wavy, raven black hair?" And she said, "No." I said, "Is it because of my A-frame shoulders and my chiseled delts?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Well then," and she said, "It's because you smell." But I'll leave a link to her video down below. I saw it on MJ's channel, Reading This Life. No love for Steve. I saw it on Micah Cummins' channel. No love for Steve. I saw it on Marilyn Maya Mendoza's channel. No love for Steve. I saw it on Book Time with Ryan's channel. No love for Steve. I saw it on Another Bibliophile Reads. No love for Steve. James Holder did this tag. No love for Steve. Gareth at Book Songs and Other Magic did this tag. Really good. All of these, I'll leave a link to all of them down below. They're all really, really interesting. Watching the evolution of all of these different readers. The one evolutionary commonality, that their common ancestor, as it were, the Adam and Eve, the mitochondrial Adam and Eve of all of these tags, is a hatred of Steve. Did Gareth tag me? No. No, he didn't. Al, Big Al's Books and Classics, did a fantastic version of this tag. Did he tag Steve? No. No. Jeff Reads. Love his channel. Loved his stuff on Lord of the Rings. Did Love get me anywhere? No. No, it didn't. I think he tagged his cleaning lady. But did he tag Steve? No, he didn't. But I thought I would do the tag anyway, because it's Tag Tuesday. Yes, it's true that for me alone, of all other booktubers, Tag Tuesday now has the taste of ashes. But that doesn't mean the tag can't be done, right? I can at least pretend to be welcomed into the bosom of my fellow booktubers. So let's do the questions. A lot of them are covered on this channel before, but I have new people watching. So, number one, what do you read? How has your taste in books evolved? The bulk of what I read is in the new release market for the American book market in 16 or 17 genres that I love to read. There are some things that are new releases in America that I don't read. Most inspiration books, most business books, most motivation books, all exercise manuals. I don't tend to read those things at all. And they are not only, well-represented genres in American literature, but in the American publishing scene, but they're also some of the biggest. And I perfectly acknowledge that I just don't pay any attention to them at all. But new fiction in pretty much any variety, new reprints that major publishing houses and minor ones are doing all the time, science fiction, fantasy, mystery, romance, in as wide a variety as I can make it, natural history, popular science, as much as I can try to understand it, history, biography, all that sort of stuff. There's a large number of genres that I do read in, and what I tend to read is those new releases, those forthcoming editions. That's, I would say, about 80% of what I read. And then, the percentages fluctuate depending on how attractive the new stuff is and how attractive the old stuff is. But the rest of it is made up of older books that I find that I haven't read, stuff that I find at charity shops or the Brattle Bookshop here in Boston, or rereads. And many times I can combine the perennial urge to reread with the reprint culture in American book market, which is not as strong as it could be, but which is still pretty good. And a normal person in a normal reading speed could fill an entire year with new reprints of older material published in the American book market. You wouldn't need to go anywhere else if that's what you wanted to do. You would never technically be reading a 2022 release. You could do that all year long. And it's also true of that 20% where I'm reading older stuff that I somehow haven't encountered in my reading life. There's quite a bit of that because the reading world is an infinite ocean. And publishers like to reprint things. And it's not just classics that they do. If they reprint something that's canonical or that's had a long, long print history, chances are I will have read it before. I will still go at it again, especially if it's a new translation. But even not that, even stuff that's just backlist, that someone maybe at some publishing house has a passion for, often I will encounter reprints like that, so I don't even have to leave the 80% that is new releases. I'm still going to want to pay attention to that critically. I'm still going to want to talk about that with other critics, that sort of thing. But that's what I read. And that has evolved because it started off, as I imagine it does with pretty much everybody, it started off a very small collection of genres that I'm interested in. We started off just a few. In fact, right at the very beginning, it started off with the classics of ancient Rome. Not current history about ancient Rome, not current biographies of the Caesars or anybody else, but just the classics that we have that were written during the height of the Roman Empire. And then that has gradually expanded and continues to expand. When I talk about how there are large genres in the American book publishing market that I don't read at all, I'm not saying that complacently, and I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back. I realize those as lacunae. Those are gaps. They're not anything to be proud of. Those religious inspiration books, those business motivation books, those self-help manuals of any kind. I should be reading more of those. I should know what's out there. I might like some of what I read. You never know. I just haven't done it, but there's room, in other words, for me to continue evolving. Then question number 2 is how you read. Has the format of your reading changed much? It has undergone seismic changes over time, slow seismic changes over time. There was a 20 or 30 year period there where I really preferred mass market paperbacks over anything. I extolled their virtues as a pretty much perfect piece of technology, reading technology. I loved them. I got them in all kinds of different subjects anywhere I went. And I largely turned a blind eye to anything else. I didn't really want anything bigger than that. I kick myself now when I think of the millions and millions of Brattle bookshop trips that I did 30, 40 years ago, where if I wasn't looking at a mass market paperback, I didn't look at anything else, even out in the sale lot. Who knows what treasures I let go right by me because I didn't care about the format. Then that gradually changed. As I reached the age of 28, I noticed that the print in mass market paperbacks was getting smaller through some sort of nefarious plot. And so then I became much more amenable to larger formats, to trade paperbacks and hardcovers. And that change came hand in hand and was probably accelerated by the fact that I got back into the world of reviewing. One of the things you almost never get as a reviewer is mass market paperbacks, but you get plenty of review copies and finished copies in hardcover. And they're bigger, they're more roomy, you can put a lot more stuff in them, you can put a lot more annotations in them. They're a lot sturdier. I destroyed a lot of mass market paperbacks without meaning to. I destroyed a lot of them. I'm kind of tough on my things. So that was a sea change to review copies that are bigger, to hardcovers, finished copies that are bigger. And there's been a sea change happening lately as well. This one also prodded along by an exterior event. In this case, the event was the COVID-19 pandemic. I had been an enthusiastic adopter of e-reading before the pandemic, but once the pandemic hit, for a few months there, publishers weren't sending out anything. And for a few months there, bookstores, including the Brattle, were very leery of customers, and you would have been very leery to go there. That only accelerated my embrace of e-reading, and that has continued, and I imagine it will continue. I've been noticing in the last few weeks the growing percentage of reading that I do on my Kindle, as opposed to anywhere else, and how much that is encroaching on even the area of new release books that used to be invulnerable to it. If a publisher offers me a PDF of a new book, I'm still going to want the advanced copy, and I'm still going to want the finished copy in case I need to send it out to a freelancer, in case I want to have the finished copy in my collection. But I will have the ebook. And unlike the 10 years that publishers offered those to reviewers before the pandemic, I don't ignore those offers anymore at all. I download all of that stuff, hundreds and hundreds of those sorts of things. And I end up doing a lot of what I consider to be pre-reading in that format. If there's a new book coming out in, well, let's say earlier in the year, if we were in June and I saw there was a new book coming out in November, and the publicist, let's say, said to me, I've got the PDF to share with you now, and I can get you a review copy as soon as they're made, and you'll be on the list for the finished copy. All of that's just fine, but it used to be that I would ignore the first part of that 3-part offer and just concentrate on the second 2 things. Now I pay attention to all 3. If the publisher has a PDF to send me there in June of that November release, I get it and send it off to my Kindle so that it's just sitting there and I can work on it. I can peck away at it. I can sniff around at its peripheries, that sort of thing. So that's an evolution that's ongoing as well. Let's see here. Number 3 is how much do you read? This is always a bone of contention, especially with new watchers to this channel. Do you read more or less than previously? When do you read? How often you read changed? How much I read. Let's get this out of the way first, especially for you new people. It has changed over time. It has increased. My reading speed and comprehension, I hope, and also retention have increased because, as I always say on this channel, it's largely a muscle. Like anything else. We put a lot of romanticism around the act of reading and the communing with the muses and whatnot, and we're encouraged to do that by publishers and especially by writers. But it's largely a muscle, like anything else. The more you work at it, the more you practice it, seriously practice it, the better shape it will be in. And I don't do anything else. So I read very fast. I read very fast. Often up around 120 to 130 or 40 pages an hour, and for very long stretches of time. So it's a huge chunk of the day. Don't be fooled by how much time I devote to you, my imaginary Booktube friends. This is still a very small fraction of my day. I spend the most of that time reading. What were the other subsidiary questions, though? It's more than previously. Every year, I read a little more than the year before. I'm just going to keep pushing that until I reach, Godwin's law or whatever it is, whatever the ceiling is of that asymptotic progression. It can't keep happening. I realize that. It can't keep getting better. But every year for the last 30 years, I have increased it. All of that. The reading, the retention, the comprehension, I've increased all of it. I'm hoping to do, my numbers are very good for this year. But there was also, when do you read? I read all day long. I read as long 1 hour, 2 hour breaks between writing that I do. I write all day long as well. I read when I'm distracted by something else. Let's say I'm doing a piece of writing and I'm, let's say, waiting on someone else and I can't proceed until I hear from them. That's perfect. If I can't, I have plenty of other writing that I could be doing, but I always tell myself, no, if I'm waiting, I might as well read. And also every night at midnight, I turn into a pumpkin. I shut off all social media, especially. I shut off all electronics. By that point, usually, whatever dogs I have are settled for the night. That changes when they get older. But I'm hoping I have 10 more years before I have to worry about that with my little schnauzer. So at midnight, my dogs usually were settled. They're settled until the sun comes up. Their metabolism just shuts off. So you can just, give them space on the bed, let them curl up, and they're fine. And then at midnight, they don't need me anymore, and I turn off the needs of everybody else. I turn off the ability of the world to contact me in any way and read. Just pure, devoted concentration. Not on the fainting couch where somebody can interrupt me. Not on the fainting couch where I can get the email I'm waiting for, but in total seclusion with total concentration. For hours at a time. For hours at a time. Noon to 4 or 3 at least, but often more than that. And that gets a lot of reading done. So I read a lot. And the question also asks how often you read changed. And yes, it has. Because for 25 years, I worked in retail. I don't really know why that's true. I really don't. I still don't know why that's true. I'll never know really what. I'll never be able to clarify my own thinking. I was working as a book editor, a book section editor, a newspaper editor, and also a book reviewer. I had a job. I had a living as that, and then I stopped to be a retail bookseller for 25 years when I could have done both. Or with a little bit of hustle, I admit I'm not good with hustle, but with a little bit of hustle, I could have moved the show to the East Coast and just kept doing that as a job. And instead, I didn't do that. And when those of you who know retail will know, it sucks downtown. It really does. If you work 8 hours a day, which for a long time I did, I worked in a retail bookstore for 8 hour shifts. I had to leave for work 45 minutes an hour ahead of time. I had to be up and ready, get everything done and ready, therefore, an hour before I leave. And all of that time is fraught and fiddling around. It's not good for reading. Except there were a few of those years where I had a commute on a commuter rail, and that was great for reading. But usually not. Usually it's you get up, you take care of the dogs, you take care of some kind of breakfast, you take care of whatever you need to do in terms of your responsibilities in the day, and then you're sort of fretting your way to departure time, and then you depart and you're fretting your way to get there, and then you're there for 8 hours, and then you have to do that whole process in reverse. You have to get back home. You have to fret your way back home with delays and leaving work late and whatnot. Any errands that have accumulated during the day that you need to do between when you leave work and when you get home. And then you get home and you've got to fret away that next hour taking care of the dogs who have gone all day without seeing you, taking care of meals for yourself and them, taking care of anything that's cropped up at the house while you were gone. You call it an 8 hour shift, but it's 10 hours at the least. And that cut into reading quite a bit. That doesn't happen now. That hasn't happened in 10 years. So there's a lot. I have a lot more time to do it now. A lot more time. There are days when, if I wanted to, I could. I'm a very fast writer. When I want to be, when I'm concentrating, and when I have my nose in my feed bag, I am a very fast writer. And so there are days when, if I wanted to, I could herd all of my writing tasks into an hour or 90 minutes. Let's say from 5 to 7. To be generous, let's say from 5 to 7 at night. If I wanted to, there are many days in my week where I could do that. Which means not only am I reading from midnight until I very begrudgingly fall asleep, but I would also be reading from dawn until 5. Just aside from walking the dog, that's all I would be doing all day. So yeah, the amount of time I spend reading has increased enormously. It's pretty much all I do. Let's see here. Question number 4 is, has Booktube changed you as a reader? On one level, no. I'm a pretty experienced reader, and I also read critically everything, even when I know it's junk, even when I'm just reading it for the 10th time, when I know that I love it. You can't really turn off critical reading. I don't really want to. It ends up being a lot of fun, provided you don't take things seriously, and you shouldn't, because, as I say all the time, this isn't heart surgery. You shouldn't take it all that seriously. In that sense, Booktube hasn't changed me as a reader at all. I still do that. Nothing could ever change that. I'm never going to be one of these people, I know and love a whole bunch of you, who are the kind of book savers, where you will read a paragraph and then sit back and go, whoa. I'm a Philistine, so I don't read like that at all. I poke good-natured fun at it, but there's a part of me, of course, that envies it. But I don't read like that. I know some big-brain, deep savers like that. I could never do that, so I don't do that. So experiencing that vicariously through Booktube and the people that do that is fun, but it's never going to change the way I am. I rip the guts out of a book. I grab onto it. It's an antagonistic approach. It's very much hands-on. I grapple with books. I wrestle with them. I'm impatiently tapping my toe. If an author starts to give me boilerplate, okay, all right, you checked out. You think I don't notice? How am I not going to notice? I've read this same book a million times. I want you to be making it worth my while. I want you to be making my hair stand on end. I read books like that, all books like that, and I love it. I'm not meaning it to sound as arid as it might sound to those of you who are book savers. You probably think that takes all the fun out of reading. It doesn't. It doesn't at all. Not for me. I love it. But that part hasn't changed. What's changed me, how Booktube has changed me as a reader, is only in positive ways. Because the more you read, especially if you're a really experienced reader, the more tempted you can be to ossify, to have certain opinions or even whole neighborhoods, whole forests become petrified in your mind, in your collection of aesthetic responses or settled opinions about authors or genres or whatnot. There's a temptation over time and over experience in reading to just let some of those things turn into the petrified forest. Just they turn into coral. And that's horrifying. That's absolutely that idea is horrifying to me. But even though the idea is horrifying to me, I'm sure that it has happened. It has crept in here and there in my own reading. Some of you will say that some of my well-known antagonisms are instances of my opinions coralizing with Cormac McCarthy or Stephen King. They're not. I've given those authors every chance in the world. I still do. Those are considered critical judgments. It's not just me saying, I don't like that. But the impulse to ossify to the point where you're saying, that's deadly. To me, that is so horrifying. I don't ever want that to happen to me. And I have found that watching Booktube, I watch a lot of Booktube in a day. Watching Booktube is the ultimate corrective to that. The alternative that I have is the Society of Other Critics, most of whom are critics, particularly because they have huge blocks of petrified forest. I don't know why, but the alternative to that is what I get on Booktube, where I am watching for the people. I feel vicariously like I get to know someone by watching their videos. I start to like how they react to things. I start to like the little bits I learn about their lives. And when I establish a kind of parasocial relationship with someone like that, and then 2 months in or 5 months in, they hold up a book and I look at the book and instantly think, I know exactly what I think about that. I don't like it. I don't like the author. I don't like any of the things the author's trying to do. Here are all the whole barrage of critical bricolage just springs in place the minute I see the cover. But then I hear them talk about it. This person that I have come to feel at least a kind of, through the lens, simpatico with, I will suddenly hear them talk about it with wonder or with appreciation. And I can't count the number of times where that has happened on Booktube and I thought, oh, maybe that is a bit of petrified wood in your own mind. Maybe the next time that shows up at the Brattle Bookshop, you should get that author and give them a try. That has not only happened countless times because of Booktube, but it's led to positive outcomes countless times because of Booktube. That is wonderful. I try to restrain that impulse so that I don't do any online buying. I realize that's a bit of a privilege on my part. I have the Brattle Bookshop, a used bookstore here in Boston, that has a massive turnover rate. So if I see a booktuber enthusing about X, Y, or Z, there's a real good chance that in the next month, X, Y, or Z is going to turn up at the Brattle for $1. So I try to restrain the impulse to just buy whatever a booktuber is holding up for me. The gimmies is what Heather Gregg refers to it as. I try to resist that. But even though I don't do the purchase, I really get a lot out of that enthusing. When people mention some author that I've heard of a million times, barely ever tried, or that I tried a long time ago and haven't tried since, I love that. That's how Booktube has changed my reading. Even though I am a leper on the outcasts of Booktube that no one likes at all. Even though that's true, I still watch, right? The leper with his hood and his staff and his bell, he watches enviously from the hill of the refuse heap across the river as the lights go on in the village and people have their wonderful meals, and he can hear the laughter, he can hear the dogs playing with each other, he can hear the music striking up once it gets dark. He can still like those things even though they would never invite him. They would never tag him, as it were. Nevertheless, the final prompt here is to tag people, and you would think that I'd be bitter, because all the people I know on Booktube don't like me. They don't tag me in anything. You would think that would make me bitter, but no, I'm better than that. So I'm going to tag people. But I'm going to tag 3 brand new people. 3 people that I found through the Booktube newbie tag, because they're the only ones who have a chance of not hating me. I guess that after a certain amount of time, everybody hates Steve. So I'm going to tag 3 new people. I'll leave links to their channels. They all seem really promising. I'm really hoping that they all continue to make videos. The first one is Caitlin on Chronicles of a Book Nerd. Then there's Happily Ever April. And finally, Ben Reads Good. I don't know. They're new channels. It's Booktube newbie tags, so they're fresh out of the gate. I don't know if they do tags, but or if they want to do tags from me, Booktube Pariah. I have no idea. But if you want to, you are tagged. If you haven't been tagged before, I'm honored to be the first person to tag you. And that's it. That is the evolution of a reader tag, the Pariah edition. So I'll wrap this up for now, and I'll see you later, Booktube. Thanks.